Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Jati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sadhujam Amritam Sajivam Sadhukam Sadhukam Vijaya Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopikakanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Rangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishapanu Sute Pranamami Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Viva Sindhu Yaivascha Patitanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Check. Thank you all for being present this morning. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and read the Sanskrit for 10th Canto, chapter 11, verses 57 through 59. Aho Brahma Vidam Vacho Nasatya Santika Hishi
Asatya Santika Chit
Gargoyara Bhagavan
Gargoyalaha Bhagavan
Anbhavita Devata.
Anabhavita Devata.
I also forget the Narayana Namaskar, so I'll do that first. Vainam Namaskritya Bhavanjana Muratamam Devam Sarasvatam Vatsam Tojayam Madhyam Nastapaya Supate Shritam Bhagavatam Sivaya Bhavate Utamashuke Bhakti Bhakti. Okay, translation by His Divine Grace A.Z. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The words of persons in full knowledge of Brahman never become untrue. It is very wonderful that whatever Garga Muni predicted, we are now actually experiencing in all detail. Purport. Would someone like to read the purport?
Purpose of human life is indicated in the Brahma Sutra, Atato Brahma Gigyasa, to make one's life. Can they hear you then?
No, I can't hear you.
You should repeat it so that you can hear you.
Sure. The purpose of human life is indicated in the Brahma Sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. To make one's life perfect, in the past, present, and future, one must learn about Brahman. Because of intense affection, Nanda Maharaj could not understand Krishna as he is. Garga Muni was able to know everything, past, present, and future, by studying the Vedas, but Nanda Maharaj could not understand Krishna directly. Because of his intense love for Krishna, he forgot who Krishna was and could not understand Krishna's potency. Although Krishna is Narayan himself, Garga Muni did not disclose this. Thus, Nanda Maharaj appreciated the words of Garga Muni, but because of his deep affection, he could not understand who Krishna was. Although Garga Muni had said that Krishna's qualities would be exactly like those of Narayan. Maybe we can read the next two verses as well. Iti Nanda Dayo Gopa
Iti Nanda Deyo Gopa
Krishna Rama Katamura
Krishna Rama Kathamuda
Purvanto Rama Manascha
Purvanto Ramamanascha
Navindan Bhava Vedanam.
Navidan Bhavavedanam.
Translation: in this way, all the cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, enjoyed topics about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram with great transcendental pleasure, and they could not even perceive material tribulations. Purport. Here is an instruction about the result of studying and discussing the Krishna Leelas that appear in Srimad Bhagavatam. Sadhyo hidi avrudyate tra kritibi shushu sudis tat sanat. Bhagavatam 1:1-2. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda in Vrindavan appeared like ordinary persons in this material world, but they never felt the tribulations of this world, although they sometimes met many dangerous situations created by the demons. This is a practical example. If we follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj and the Gopas, we can all be happy simply by discussing the activities of Krishna. Anata Pashamam Saksan Bhakti Yoga Mahuksaje Nosa Janatu Vivans Chakre Sadvaita Samhitam. Bhagavatam 179. Vasudev has given this literature so that everyone may understand one's transcendental position, and simply by discussing Bhagavad Gita, even at the present moment, everyone everywhere can be happy and free from material tribulations by following Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no need of austerities and penances, which in this age are very difficult to perform. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore declared, Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. By our Krishna consciousness movement, we are trying to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam so that anyone in any part of the world can be absorbed in the Krishna consciousness movement by chanting and hearing about the activities of Krishna and be free from all material tribulations. All right, next verse. Evam vihare kumare
Evam vihare kumare
Omaram Jahatur Vaje
Omaram Jahatur Braje
Nilayane Setu Bande
Nilayane Situ Bande
Margato Plavane Divi.
Margato Plavane.
In this way, Krishna and Balaram passed their childhood age in Vrajabhumi by engaging activities of childish play, such as playing hide and seek, constructing a make-believe bridge on the ocean, and jumping here and there like monkeys. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 10th canto, 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled The Childhood Pastimes of Krishna. Jai. So I have a couple notes for each of the verses. I'll start with the verse 57. The words of persons in full knowledge of Brahman never become untrue. It is very wonderful that whatever Garga Muni predicted, we are now actually experiencing in all detail. It's a very powerful statement. So saying one who is in full knowledge of Brahman, full knowledge of the spirit, full knowledge of things as they are revealed through the Vedas, through the cyclic succession, they are, what they say never becomes untrue. So I was thinking of some practical examples that we've seen of this. And the first one that comes to mind was this instance with Srila Prabhupada. I was told orally, so I don't have the reference, but they were, Prabhupada was in India and they were heading to the airport. And so he looked at this plot of land and he said, this place would make a really nice temple. This place would be an excellent place for a temple. And then that was it. End of discussion, no plans went about, nothing, from that moment. But later on, it was found that His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj had established the Chowpatty temple. And that aligned it. That was the same plot of land that Srila Prabhupada had talked about. So in this way, in many other examples, we can see that people who are in full knowledge of Brahman, whatever they say, cannot be untrue. And so another example we have of this, so many examples from the Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, this Bhagavatam was written down by Srila Vyasadeva 5,000 years ago. But we can see that his name is slipping. Personalist, not personalist, incarnation of the Lord, projects the Vedas. Buddha. So Lord Buddha actually was predicted in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we can see how that has actually come true. What to speak of the things that are predicted in the 12th canto about the Kali Yuga age, and how already those things are coming true. That water will be sold, and different things about beauty, and all of these things, yeah. So as we can see from that point, one who is aware, has full knowledge of Brahman, what they say can never be untrue. And so in the purport, I found it very interesting that it's saying because of Nanda Maharaj's intense affection, he cannot understand Krishna as he is. And so when we look in this material world, we can see that to not know who Krishna is not beneficial to one's material or spiritual life. To not know the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be covered by Mahamaya, is to be covered by illusion. But this is completely different from the situation of Nanda Maharaj. And so to elaborate on this point, Shamananda Krishna Prabhu was telling us about how there's these kind of three different areas. There's first in the material world where we are covered by the three modes of material nature, and we are in illusion, and we might have different mixture of qualities. And gradually, by associating with the Vedic literatures, by taking guidance, by getting that spiritual realization, Adho Brahma Jignasa, finding out about spiritual life, we eventually go to that middle platform, which is the bridge between the material and the spiritual realm. So it's that bridge. We are bringing in Brahminical qualities. We are able to start to see things as they are, start to understand Krishna through knowledge as he is, and then eventually develop into loving devotional service. And then in that third phase, we actually gain it in the full 100% of self-realization, of knowing who we are in the spiritual world. And so in this case, Nanda Maharaj is actually in the most superior position because he's able to relish this intense love with Krishna and his spiritual identity as Nanda Maharaj. So, yeah. So it's interesting because Garga Muni is able to know Krishna through the study of the Vedas, which is how we come to know things as they are. But this reminded me of a verse that I was reading in the fourth canto, chapter 29, verse 42, where it says, the conclusion is that simply by advancing one's knowledge, one cannot be accepted as an expert in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood not by advanced knowledge, but by pure devotional service. And so that we can see that this is different from Garga Muni, of course, but just by knowledge itself, we don't get to know Krishna as he is. I mean, I was thinking of an example this morning, like, what if somebody just knew everything about you? It's like, oh, Nanda Ballabha, you're from India, and you have all these things, and he's like, I know every little detail of your life. Like, does that mean that like all of a sudden, like, oh, he knows every detail? Like, oh, I want him to come hang out with me because like he knows every weird, odd like detail about me, but there's no like love, there's no mood of service, there's no like, what can I do for you? You know, it's just if knowledge without, you know, the drive of wanting to serve, knowledge without love doesn't get us to that goal. Knowledge is the means, but it's not the end. We have to get further than that. But we need to start with knowledge. That's how we are able to see things as they are. See that my position is as Jivatma. His position is Supreme Personality of Godhead. From that setting, we develop that relationship. So I don't casually just, you know, offensively go like, oh, hey, buddy, you know, I don't want to just skip over that. It's crucial that we start with knowledge, but it's not the end point. We have to go further into a loving relationship. And how we do that is by associating with devotees, as mentioned in this next verse here. So in 58, in this way, all the cowherd men headed by Nanda Maharaj enjoyed topics about the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram with great transcendental pleasure, and they could not even perceive material tribulations. So that's very powerful. Very, very powerful. So, of course, naturally, that reminds me of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 9. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So in this way, we can see how this is fully manifest for Nanda Maharaj. They just enjoy talking about Krishna and Balaram to the fullest extent. And why is that? And Krishna is all attractive. Krishna means all attractive. So all of those things that anyone likes, anyone that has any inclination towards fame, beauty, wealth, power, prestige, Krishna is the samama, he's the reservoir of that. All those things take shelter in Krishna and come from him. So even just talking about Krishna and Balaram's pastimes, it brings this great transcendental pleasure because he is that reservoir of pleasure. You're able to associate with the sun, and then we get the heat, so you get the warmth of that. And so we can get so immersed in that that we don't even feel any of the difficulties that might be in our surroundings. I mean, that's amazing. To give like a mundane example, like if we've ever been in like, it's not a correct term, but like work samadhi, you know, like we're just working for something mundane, but like, it's like really got my attention. For me, I'm like a graphic designer in college, I was studying, and I would just spend like 3 hours just like, this is gonna be like this, this is gonna be like that, this is gonna be like that. And then I don't, for that short amount of time, I don't realize like, oh, I haven't like eaten or I haven't like drinking water or anything. I haven't done any of these things. But those things are very much important. Like, why? Because they are temporary. At some point, I'm gonna come out of that and be like, oh my gosh, I'm starving. Oh my gosh, my like muscles hurt or something like this, you know? Eventually I'm gonna come out of that. But this also reminds me of another verse in Bhagavad Gita, that these happiness and distresses in the material world, they come and go, and they appear like the winter and the summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O son of birth, and one must learn to tolerate them without becoming disturbed. And so in this verse you say, and they could not even perceive material tribulations. Their senses are so engrossed in Krishna and Balaram, in the loving, sweet pastimes of Rajabhumi, that they cannot even perceive anything outside of the material tribulations. And that is the state of existence that can go on eternally. Why? Because the spiritual world is Satchidananda. Well, I can do my little graphic design work for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It has to end because it's material. It's temporary engagement. But this is an eternal engagement. Nanda Maharaj is always Nanda Maharaj. Krishna's always Krishna. Balaram's always Balaram. They're always having these transcendental pastimes in the land of Rajabhumi. And because of that nature, they can stay in that existence of being completely absorbed in that transcendental nectarian wave of love that is Krishna, that takes shelter in Krishna. And so, and to give another example of this, with Hanuman in his journey to Lanka, he had a mission to find Sita. She had been stolen by the demon Ravana. And so he was completely fixed on that mission. So Hanuman is a great example for us in being fixed in a mission. He's like, I need to get Sita. I need to serve Lord Ram. His heart is broken and his heart has been stolen away. I need to go and find this Sita Devi. And so along that way, nothing stopped him. He like jumped across the ocean, and even the mountain came out of the water, like, here, take a rest. He's like, no, I'm fixed. I'm in this state of complete absorption. If I'm tired, I can't even perceive of it. I need to get this mission done. I need to please Lord Ram. So he's flying across the ocean, any the difficulties that come, he finds a way to honor it. He finds a way to honor the boons of Lord Brahma. So it's a great side note about etiquette of like, even though he has the power to break Lord Brahma's like, blessings and stuff like that, he does things in such a way where the Vaishnava etiquette is also, respected. And so, great example for us when we have determination, I need to get this done, but I need to be respectful to each person. So every difficulty that came along the way, he held with the highest standard of morality, the highest standard that his Lord Ram would be satisfied with. And so when he actually got to Lanka, there was so many distractions, every kind of material pleasure, every kind of material opulence, everything was there to distract his mind. But he kept it fixed, but he fixed it on the lotus feet of Lord Ram, his service to Lord Ram, so that everything that he saw didn't even faze his mind. His mind was completely fixed on his service. And so in that way, and he's serving Lord Ram, the reservoir of pleasure. So in that way, that higher taste kept him from being deviated by anything else. And so all those difficulties he's found, even when he got to like Sita Devi, even when he was able to get something to prove that he had met her, and then he got caught or allowed himself to be caught by the soldiers of Ravana. Then, of course, his tail was being burned, all these different things. He was being humiliated, he was beaten, his tail was burned and scorched. But even then, in those tribulations, he was focused on his mission. And of course, then he burns down half of Lanka, which is pretty epic. And then he makes his way back to Lord Ram. And it's described, I was listening to the audiobook recently, it was described that he completely forgot about any difficulty that he had because he was being lovingly embraced by Lord Ram himself. Having that affection, having that satisfaction of Lord Ram, seeing that satisfaction of Lord Ram, seeing that he did something to please him, seeing that he was able to in a way, return his heart, return Lord Ram's heart, Lord Ram's ecstasy, Lord Ram's, there's not a word I can use to describe it sufficiently, but that service made Hanuman eternally dear to Lord Ram. And so receiving that love from Lord Ram, not only was he grateful for that opportunity of service, but he completely forgot any tribulations. Lord Ram's like, what happened to your tail? It's all burnt. He's like, tail? What tail? I have a tail. Like, I'm just happy for you. Like he's just completely absorbed. So in this way, we can see that through our service, through this Krishna Kirtan, through this transcendental pleasure that is the reservoir of Krishna, through our service to him, through connecting with him, we can also get into that state where we don't feel any material tribulations. And of course, there's so many examples like this where even our sense perception is just kind of mute. Like, for example, Maharaj Parikshit, just hearing the Katal, he's able to hear it 7 days straight. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm not even hungry. I'm not even, thirsty. I'm not even tired, So through this, this lovely Krishna Katal, it eventually purifies the heart, controls the mind, and we're able to engage in our original constitutional position as reciprocating in these loving transcendental pleasures and pastimes with Krishna and Balaram. And so this goes to my next point. That's there in the spiritual world, that's their level. But then how do we engage in that now? And this brings up the importance of Vaishnava Sangha. Yeah, so to quote from a verse in Canto 4, verse 29, chapter 4th Canto, chapter 29, verse 39, reads, my dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like waves of a river. One will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and illusion. I mean, that's poetry. That's beautiful. I gotta read it again. My dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear and lamentation and illusion. There's so many examples of this, so many examples. I just even recently in Parampara, just like Maharaj Pariksit, Prahlad Maharaj, Narada Muni, there's so many examples of this principle, and we can experience it practically. And so, as Srila Prabhupada would say, this is a spiritual science. And so we can see the proof of it by our own experience through it. So we can perhaps, like, I can look at myself and see, like, a couple of years ago, these different things I had taste for, the different things I had engagement for. And as to the degree that I bring Krishna consciousness into my life, to the degree that I associate with the holy names, to the degree that I associate with that Supreme Personality of Satchidananda, those tastes change. I start to feel a pleasure that is beyond anything I experienced in the material world. I'm able to tap in just a little bit for myself, speaking of, but taste a little bit of that nectarian flow. And depending on my eagerness to hear, my eagerness to serve, my eagerness to reciprocate with everything I've been giving, that is the one qualification. As we hear the lolya, right? The spiritual greed, like, I want to hear about Krishna. I want to be with Vaishnava, in Vaishnava Sangha. I really want to please them. I really want to reciprocate with everything I've gotten. And so that's the power of gratitude. It can be that spark of knowledge that brings us forward, that engages us in whatever it takes. And so my Shiksha Guru, Nanda, she was saying one definition, she was quoting her guru, Sridaya Nanda Maharaj, that there's a Sanskrit word for gratitude, and it translates as to know what has been done, to know what has been given. And so in that way, that's an internal trend, like internal meditation. Just for me thinking, like, I've been in this material world, millions of births, Super Soul has been with me every time. Everywhere, reciprocating with all my desires. That's just even in the mundane way. What to speak of just this lifetime? Everything has been given to me by my peers, my seniors, everyone. That even my parents have given to me. My ability that I have this body, that I can now be before you, that I can engage in these things, I can use the senses in Krishna's use in service. So then, what to speak of Srila Prabhupada, where he fully, sorry, my mind is just going, but for him to know what has been done, to know what has been given, for him to receive that so deeply in his heart, such gratitude for his guru, that he was willing to go to literally hell on earth to bring people this opportunity of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Gita, Vaishnava Sangha, Prashadam. So his example of that is completely bewildering. And so to his knowing what has been given just completely drove him to go through all kinds of tribulations. To drive home one small example of this, it's in the, I believe it's in, I don't know actually which volume, but it's in Prabhupada Lamrita, where Prabhupada needed to get a spinal tap. And so I like talking about this because I had a friend who got a spinal tap in high school, and he said it's the most painful operation that you can possibly get, even by today's standards. So what is speaking like the 70s or something? You get a big old syringe. Yeah, cringe alert, sorry. And you have to put it right in between the disc of the spine, and you have to draw out some fluids that, and it's an excruciating, painful process during and after for a long amount of time until it heals. And so Srila Prabhupada had to go through that experience, had to go through that operation in the 70s. And so knowing that that was like an extremely, extremely painful operation, the disciples were around him and like, Prabhupada, like, are you okay? Like, are you in pain? Like, how are you feeling? He's just like, we are tolerant. I mean, what kind of spiritual ecstasy you have to be experiencing that those tribulations don't even affect us, you know, to the point where we don't even perceive it. And so yeah, it really just keeps giving life to that Shikshashkan verse. So I mean, yeah, by being more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass, willing to give respect to all others without expecting respect for oneself, then one can chant the holy names forever. And so, and by chanting the holy names, we're associating Krishna. And when we're associating with Krishna in this way, to the extent that Srila Prabhupada, that our acharyas, that Nanda Maharaj is doing, everything in the material world just, it's a wonderful kind of cure-all, you know. I think it deserves some branding. I'm from graphic design, digital advertising, things like, you know, cure-all for everything, all material tribulations. Humbly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Yeah. So again, to drive home this point of Vaishnava Sangha, the change that we want to see in the world begins with ourselves. It begins with us. And so I really love this example that His Holiness Rana Maharaj gives, that all the pollution that we see in the world, all of the loud cars and all of the, all the things, all the polluted rivers, all of the things that we see wrong in the world is a manifestation of what's in our hearts, the collective of what is in our hearts. And so when we do that, I believe in the journey within, it says, clean the ecology of the heart. When we start within, then naturally everything else changes without. We can even see that practically with, like, as we develop brahminical qualities. Then, oh wow, my room is actually pretty tiny because I like it that way. You know, so it just naturally follows. So it starts within, it emanates throughout. And so it's so important that, you know, again, I guess just to give another example of Srila Prabhupada, you know, the Shastras say that wherever that pure devotee goes, that becomes a sacred dham. And so that's why we can see these temples are holy places. Srila Prabhupada is here. It is a Vaikuntha dham. And Radha Muralidhar and Gaurachander are here. It is this spiritual abode. He's not only a Vaikuntha man, he is a Goloka man. And so, so by that presence, this entire place changes. And so by our associating with that, by our allowing that radiance to affect our hearts, to clean the ecology of our hearts, then we are able to have more an effect on the world around us. We are able to have a different effect on the people that we deal with. We are able to have a different effect collectively on the entire world as a whole. And we can just see how Prabhupada's example of that has affected the entire planet. I mean, Prabhupada Priya, one of my other Shiksha gurus, she would say that she didn't even know the term vegetarian. Like when she was like 15 or something like that, like someone said, oh, I'm vegetarian. She's like, what's that? You know, it wasn't even a concept. But now it's like gone super far where there's even like vegan stores, there's everything, you know, it's has a really subtle but powerful effect, especially when we are able to come together and uphold the standards through the parampara. We're able to stay chaste to the truth as it is, and we're able to receive that nectar that flows just like a river, that has waves exactly like a river, and we're able to tap into that flow. And so that's why it's so important. The Acharyas are giving us everything, absolutely everything. And so the importance of Vaishnava Sangha is not only that we live in the same place. Association, I've heard, means that we are speaking about Krishna, that we are engaging in Krishna Katha, that we are speaking spiritual topics. Even one of the 6 loving exchanges, it was revealed to me that inquiring confidentially and receiving one's mind confidentially is not only receiving one's difficulties, which is really important for good relationships, which is very important for relationships, which is very important for changing the entire world. So that's very important. But it's also revealing one's mind about the Shastras, having this time where we can come together and we can glorify Srila Prabhupada, we can glorify Krishna, we can glorify Nanda Maharaj. And in this way, when we associate that like this, that spiritual potency becomes present there. Krishna says that he is present, not in this place, not in that place, but he's present where the devotees are coming together to speak about his glories. And so, I mean, Krishna consciousness, we conscious of Krishna, we want to associate with Krishna, so let's come together and let's talk about Krishna. And someone else was saying, this will be one of my last points, but a real relationship has Krishna in the center. That we really connect deeply when Krishna's in the center. I see this practically in my own life. I had friends in the pre-Krishna consciousness world for like 10 years. And relationships that I had in Krishna consciousness, although the time is only 2 or 3 years, my relationship with them is deeper than anything else I've experienced in this world. I feel like I'm willing to go, through any amount of austerities for them, more than my friends in the material world. I find that like peculiar, but it's really because Krishna is in the center. We are connecting over the most important goal of life. We are connecting by that divine friend that we have in common. If you meet somebody new, it's like, oh, I don't know who you are, I don't know what your interests are, but do you know Krishna? Oh, you know Krishna? Oh, I love Krishna. Isn't he so cool? He does this and this. And so we connect over that. We connect over something divine. We connect over that supreme personality. And so, yeah, again, to strive on that point, the change that we want to see in the world begins with us here. And so when we inquire from each other, we do these loving exchanges, showering gifts, inquiring confidentially, then our relationship becomes strong. When our relationship becomes strong, Krishna has that avenue to deposit his mercy. He wants this world to change as much more than we do, probably. And so when we become close in our sangha, we become vessels for that, and we are allowed to deposit that to the world. So 755. I have a few last points from verse 59. In this way, Krishna and Balaram passed their childhood age in Vrajabhumi by engaging in activities of childish play, such as playing hide and seek, constructing a make-believe bridge on the ocean, and jumping here and there like monkeys. So I just really like this because it has like a little window to like how much more out there is. The Srimad Bhagavatam, how can they summarize? They're kind of on a timeline. Like Maharaj Parikshit needs to hear the whole thing in 7 days. But when you think about it, Krishna was there for about like 11 years, chronological time-wise. And so that's like 365 days in a year. That's like 3,000 pastimes that like have gone on. So there's so much more going on. And that's just in this, his leelas on this planet. What to speak about the infinite leelas going on in the spiritual world. There is infinite things to relish from Krishna, so we can keep meditating. I don't want to ever think like, oh, I've heard this pastime before, or oh, I want to hear something. Like there is infinite variety, but each one moment has an infinite depth within it. It just makes you think of like an XY axis. Both ways are infinite. There's infinite variety and there's infinite depth to each single one of them. And so another point about his childish pastimes. I remember hearing recently that I remember hearing from a lecture that everything that we see in this material world is a preferred reflection of the spiritual world. And so just like in this world, children like to play. Where do they get that propensity? And he was saying that everyone that you can think of, children across the time, they love to play, except for Prabhu Maharaj. He's the exception. But so where does that propensity come to play? And you're saying that it comes from the original Supreme Personality of God himself. He is the origin of these things. He's the origin of these games. So it's kind of changing our perception. It's not like, oh, why is like sort of the president of all existence, like, playing like a monkey? It's the opposite. all beautiful things come from Krishna, all relishable things come from Krishna. And so when we hear that he's jumping around and playing like monkeys, it's a beautiful, relishable thing that he's engaging in these loving relationships. And that when we see those things in this world, that can remind us of that Supreme Personality and those relishable actions that he has. Yeah. So all these things, yeah, just to summarize, it's so critical that we take to this process sincerely with an open heart, not just to fit some kind of mold, but to connect, to really deeply connect. That when we get this knowledge, we can first understand that, okay, this is how the art of love works. This is the different tools, this is the different art palette, this is the style, this is what we chase to this. But this process, we need to go deeper. That's the framework so that we can understand what is what. So we have discrimination, but then we need to go deeper so that we can bring out our unique energy, our unique self, our unique, ultimately, relationship with Krishna. And how we do that is through the guidance of our souls. Through each other, we feel our minds. I'm feeling this, I'm experiencing this. What did you think about this thing that makes me think like this? And then when we are able to refer to Shastra, Guru Sadhana Shastra, then we are able to get that full image and develop organically. So if we are like a plant in Krishna consciousness, then we need the sun, and we need the water, and we need the soil. We need the Guru Sadhana Shastra. And those things bring us that full picture, full narrative. And that way we can grow our Bhakti beach all the way up to spiritual planet. At the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Krishna.
I was just going to say we're supposed to leave 5 minutes for questions.
Oh, I thought it was till 8:15.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Amazing class though, but now we're given opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah.
Do you want to, I have a question. I'll ask questions. Thank you so much for a wonderful class, Max. It was so inspiring and beautiful hearing from you. One point that really, actually just a point that struck out to me. One point that really struck out to me is like, that devotees, they get so absorbed in their service that they don't think about things like hunger or thirst or their own needs. They're just like completely absorbed in Krishna. And I remember one time a devotee told me that someone once asked Radhanath Swami, well, what do you like? And I think they might have been talking about prasadam, like, well, what kind of prasadam do you like? And Radhanath Swami said that for so many years, I've been serving others that I don't even know what I like.
Wow.
And what I don't like. And I remember when I heard that, it just made me pray, like, please, Krishna, may I someday come to that level where I'm so absorbed in serving others that I don't even, consider what I like and don't like.
Thank you for that wonderful point. Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
I'll show you all Darshan who's online.
Thank you, Chimpakalata. Thank you, Bhakti Max. Kurukshetra blowing. Okay, reach Bhagavatam. Good seeing you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Jamuna Jaya, are you teaching already? Or walking, smiling? Suzanne, Hare Krishna. Angel, Jamuna Jaya, Hare Krishna. Good seeing you. Beautiful smile. Suzanne, Angel, Isabel, Spirit Soul, Pat, Kartik, Amish, good seeing you all. Have a wonderful Saturday. Krishna consciousness is a notion of bliss, like Max Prabhu was describing. Yes, Isabel, Spirit Soul is driving safely. Hare Krishna. All right. Yeah, so Krishna consciousness is wonderful. Srila Prabhupada built this house where everyone can live. So let's all move in together and enjoy life in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.